Hi Benchmates, buckle in. This episode contains mild hobby drama, extreme stash denial, and an emotional farewell to a paintbrush we probably should have cleaned. Benchmates, please welcome your hosts Paul Pendleton-Brown, Mike Baldwin, Mark Housley, Tim Mulvial, James Nevitt, and Paul Wong. And we are joined this episode by Paul Regan, President of the International Plastic Modeller Society, United Kingdom.
Hello Benchmates and welcome to episode 4 of Beyond the Box Art. Now before we dive into glue pots and decal sheets this week, a heartfelt thank you to everyone who tuned into episode 3, which judging by your feedback went down smoother than a coat of satin varnish over a gloss decal. The interview with Luke Slaney-Hewitt, product manager for aircraft, helicopters and real space at Revell, was one that we've been looking forward to sharing, and I have to say the response has been fantastic. Luke, if you're listening, and I sincerely hope you are, thank you once again for lifting the curtain on what was actually happening behind the scenes at Revell, and we look forward to welcoming you back soon. Plus, you got the prize for the first use of the naughty word alarm. I'm sure it won't be the last. A lot of you reached out via email and the socials to say how refreshing it was to hear the inside story from someone in the know, and how a kit idea goes from concept to CAD and all the chaos in between. Luke's passion and the subject really came through, and I think what hit home for many of you was the sheer amount of thought, coordination and caffeine that goes into bringing a model into our benches. One listener described it as lifting the lid on the hobby from the inside out, which I quite like personally, considering we spend most of our time talking about what's beyond the box art. See what I did there? Now let's talk about the plastic elephant in the room, the Gloucester Meteor F8 and FR9. It's safe to say the Meteor has sparked more interest than any other upcoming release so far this year. And rightly so. This isn't just any kit. It's Revell throwing its hat back into the ring with a subject that's been crying out for a modern tool, especially in this scale and with this level of detail. We've had messages from early jet fans, Cold War collectors, RAF modelers, even sci-fi builders are eyeing it up for a kit bash, all chomping at the bit to see what the final plastic looks like. But as one of the people who checked the CAD and added some missing screws and removed some panels, it is near perfection as you will get. But rest assured, once the box lands, we'll be tearing it open faster than a modeller trying to avoid getting home with a very large box by the better half, getting caught and claiming it was a raffle win. So with all that buzzing in the background, what's coming up in this episode? Well, we've got a cracking selection lined up. First we look at some of the latest kit news from around the hobby, including some rather unexpected announcements from a smaller manufacturer that might just tempt your wallet out of hiding. Our guest this episode is Paul Regan, President of the International Plastic Modeller Society, UK. I'm sure we will delve deep not only into the history of IPMS, but we'll discuss the here and now and what's coming up at Scale Model World 25 at Telford. But more on that later. Now we have a big thank you, and we are privileged to announce, big cheer everyone, thank you, Ken Hansen as our first Patreon member.
Thank you, Ken.
And in recognition of this, we're increasing his membership to the top tier as a thank you. And we will also do this for the 10th and 50th member. But I've just had this really stupid thought whilst we're actually recording this. As the first person to sign up, why don't we get Ken on as an extra host when we actually do a recording?
Yeah. Good idea.
Let's do that.
Good idea.
Yeah. And we will do that for the 50th person as well. So there you go. If you want an incentive, you can come on.
Well, he doesn't want paying.
No, not at all. He's the one paying us.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea of paying.
Yeah.
You haven't quite grasped this. You haven't quite grasped this yet, have you, Tim? Work on that. Anyway, now, We had a post on our socials which quickly disappeared, which questioned why are we looking for support via Patreon so soon after we started. And even though it has gone, I think it's worth trying to explain. Setting up and running a pod is not cheap, especially in the UK. Purchasing the equipment, sorting web hosting, the costs, the distribution, the software, everything, unfortunately, isn't cheap. So, are we trying to make money out of the pod? 100% no. We've said this from day one, and to be absolutely crystal clear, any excess we have at the end of each year will be donated to Models for Heroes charity, the ex-armed forces and emergency services who use model making to help recovery from the likes of PTSD, etc. Of which more of that will be in episode 6 when we'll be welcoming Malcolm Childs and James Skiffens from Models for Heroes and the work they do for that charity. Hopefully that's cleared that up. Right, let's crack on, top up your tea, get comfy at the bench and make sure that the sanding sticks are in easy reach because episode 4 starts now.
Please support veterans, service personnel and blue light services through scale modelling therapy. Visit modelsforheroes.org.uk where plastic, paint and purpose come together. It's time for the Stash Inflation Report, because who needs financial stability when you can have limited edition resin accessories?
It's that time again to hide your wallets, which isn't a problem for Wongi unless his wife finds out, for the Stash Inflation Report. Let's kick off with some exciting aircraft news. 3D Blitz Model are re-releasing their 172nd Pilatus PC-21, a sleek turboprop trainer used by many air forces. This re-release is in 3 separate boxings with markings for the Qatari Emiri Air Force, Royal Jordanian Air Force and the French Armée de l'Air, showcasing just how global this Swiss-designed turboprop trainer has become. Academy are repopping their 148th Cessna 172 Skyhawk, the 172 of the world's most produced aircraft, and this Civil Air Patrol version honours its use in search and rescue, disaster relief and training missions across the United States. A massive shout out to Airscale, who've announced a 132nd 3D printed Hawker Typhoon 1B. This isn't just a kit, it's a fundraiser, made in partnership with the Hawker Typhoon Legacy Project to help rebuild the actual RB326 aircraft to flying condition. An incredible blend of passion, history and modelling support. AMC are bringing us a 172nd scale Lockheed Martin RQ-170 Sentinel. This mysterious UAV, designed by the infamous Lockheed Skunk Works, famously dubbed the Beast of Kandahar. This stealth drone was involved in missions over Iran and Pakistan and has rarely been modelled. Also from AMC is the 172nd Leonardo, formerly Augusta Westland, AW139, a modern multi-role helicopter used by Coast Guards, police and military units across the world. A Model are reissuing their 172nd scale Bombardier Learjet 35A, now with new decals. First flown in 1973, the 35A came a staple of civil executive transport and was even adopted for military use in multiple countries. Armour Hobby have given their excellent 172nd P-51B Mustang a fresh lease of life with new parts and decals for China, Burma and India campaigns. Perfect for those wanting to explore the lesser modelled theatres of World War II. Fatal Models are launching a Ryan PT-19A Cornell trainer in both 48th and 32nd scales. 2 versions. 48th is in Chilean markings and the 32nd is in Brazilian markings. The PT-19 was one of those key American primary trainers used during World War II, primarily to teach thousands of pilots to the basics of flight. BBK are re-releasing their 172nd Boeing 737-700, this time in Southwest Airlines livery. Nice little civil touch for those wanting to step away from camo for a build or two. Our friends at Revell are also going commercial, repopping their 144th A350-900 and Boeing 737-800, both in Turkish airline markings. Also sneaking in under the radar, literally, is the re-release of the Revell 172nd Westland Sea King in German Navy anniversary and retirement markings, and also an ex-Royal Navy machine in Ukrainian markings, which is due to hit the shops in August. Italeri are re-releasing their 148th Fiat CR42 Falco, iconic biplane that saw combat in World War II from North Africa to Norway. They're also revisiting the 172nd Dornier 217, this time with new parts for the K1, K2, W and the Fritz X guided bomb variants. Meanwhile, Sword are revisiting two late-war Japanese naval aircraft in 172nd, HE B-7A2 Grace, a carrier-capable torpedo bomber, and the Nakajima C-6N1 MID, a reconnaissance airframe designed to outrun Allied fighters. IBG are aiming for a 2026 release for an all-new 172nd scale Fiesler FI-156C and 156D Storch. Famed for its incredible short takeoff and landing performance, the Storch served with everyone from Luftwaffe to the Free French. KP have upgraded their 172nd MiG-21UM with new high-tech parts and new decals, perfect for those wanting a more modern Cold War jet with training routes. Mung are relaunching a high-tech version of the F-4E as the 2020 Terminator, complete with 3 Turkish Air Force schemes, including a special 70th anniversary of NATO scheme. Included in the box you'll find stainless steel photo etch and a metal pitot tube included. And finally something beautifully niche. Red Room Models are releasing a 148th CT4 air trainer in 3D printed resin, featuring 2 Royal Australian Air Force 1 Flying Training Scheme options and a Royal New Zealand Air Force Central Flying School scheme. If you're a fan of Commonwealth trainers or aerobatic teams like the Red Checkers, this one deserves a spot in your stash. I'd personally be hunting down a version with the Red Checkers markings if they're going to release one. Yes, please. Nevs, on to the nauticals.
Sure, so Dream Model have announced a new tooling 1/700 scale Russian Navy FFG Type 20380. Try saying that after a drink or two. This is a guided missile corvette. It will feature 3D printed parts, including the onboard Kamov helicopter, a sheet of photo etch and paint masks. This will be a waterline kit expected to release within the next month or two. Verifier have gone full steam back onto the naval scene with several new announcements, including the battleship Haie, heavy cruiser Ioba, and aircraft carrier Shinano, all in 1/350th scale. They have also announced a new tool, heavy cruiser Takao, in 1/700. Flyhawk are re-releasing their 1/700th HMS Hood kit, this time including parts for a 1940 version, i.e. pre-slapdash refit before its infamous rendezvous with the Bismarck. We can expect all the 5.5-inch secondary mounts that were removed for the Denmark Strait. And last but not least, Trumpeter are releasing a 1/350th HMS Royal Oak, one of the World War I era Revenge-class super dreadnoughts. For any fans of British dreadnoughts, especially those that end up at the bottom of Scapa Flow, courtesy of a U-boat, this is one for you.
Okay, Boulders, AFVs.
Right, okay. Let's roll into the world of armour. Now, some exciting re-releases and some up-armoured classics. 3R Model are re-popping their Striker M1126 infantry carrier vehicle. Now, with new parts based on the Canadian LAV-3, the Striker became a modular backbone of the US Army Rapid Development Forces in Iraq and Afghanistan, offering mobility, protection and firepower all in one 8-wheeled vehicle. Gasworks are back with a 1/35th Rakuten Jagdpanzer Jaguar II. Also with updated parts, this Cold War tank destroyer was based on the Bundeswehr Cannon Jagdpanzer hull and carried the powerful Tor anti-tank missile launcher. It's a brilliant subject for fans of modernised post-World War II German armour. Hobby Boss are re-releasing their Cougar 4x4 MRAP, a mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle used by the US and Allied forces across Afghanistan and Iraq. Known for its V-shaped hull and survivability for modellers tackling modern military themes. Italeri are revisiting their 1/35th scale M47 pattern, this time with new parts and an international decal sheet featuring Belgian, German, French, Greek, Italian and US Army versions. As the first post-World War II American tank to be widely exported, the M47 was a Cold War workhorse before being replaced by the M48 and the M60 series. Mini Art are bringing back the classic German 3-ton Opel Blitz cargo truck. now with enhanced parts. The Blitz was the backbone of the Wehrmacht logistic fleet throughout World War II, seeing service from Russia, steppes to the deserts of North Africa. MMK are re-releasing the 1 to 35th A3S military trailer, an ideal companion piece for modern vehicle dioramas, whether you're hauling cargo behind a Humvee, Striker or logistics truck. Under model are also back with a hefty one, the Ward La France M1A1 heavy wrecker, used extensively by the US forces to recover damaged tanks and heavy vehicles in the European and Pacific theatres. This 35th scale kit includes updated parts for even more diorama potential. And lastly, the Big Cat returns to Trumpeter, are re-releasing the 1 to 16 scale Panzerkampfwagen 6 Tiger II, aka the Koenigs Tiger or the King Tiger. This massive model matches its real-world counterpart in presence, armed with an 88mm gun and nearly impenetrable frontal armour. The Tiger II was Germany's most feared, if mechanically temperamental, late-war beast.
Please visit modelpodcast.com, because finding great modelling shows shouldn't be harder than masking a canopy. One website with all the best pods.
So, for work in progress, Wongy. Has that racing catamaran finally got across the finishing line yet? And why not?
Absolutely not. Right, so something which I found with that kit, even though it is 60 parts or less, is the fact that there's too many variables with it. And what I mean by that is I've got vac form sails, which in my view don't look correct. And it never will be, because you can never get any shadows into it properly. It's got rigging. I hate rigging. Okay? So let's make that clear. I'll say it again. I hate rigging.
I know a song about rigging.
Exactly. And I'll just say it right now. Right, my ironing skills for the transfer onto the mesh sheet didn't go the way I wanted it to. So I will not be doing that again. I will be looking at something else, replicate.
Have you binned it, Wongy?
I've not binned it, but it's been pretty close. But in the meantime, I have started something else just to break the monotony. It's a kit. It's got a massive number of pieces, 23. I put most of it together over last Sunday. It's a Revell snow speeder, and it's one of their little snap together kits. And what I've noticed is, although it snaps together, I'm going to unsnap it and repaint it, because I reckon I could do a better job than that. Even though it does look pretty good, and for you kids, just build it. But that's all I've got on at the minute.
You could do a better job of that, mate, with your glasses off.
Well, yeah. Next time you'll try opening his eyes.
Yeah, there you go.
What scale's that, Wongy? Is that 72? That can't be 72, is it?
No, I reckon it's 48.
48.
Yeah,
Wow.
48. And considering this is, what, 10 quid compared to a
Bad then, eh?
Bandai one, which is 40 quid,
40 quid, yeah.
you could dress it up, basically, is the same thing. Just don't look too close. And do what I do, squint. And it looks just like the Bandai one.
Are you diorama in it? Is it going to go on something?
Maybe. I might put it onto another, a second coffee coaster challenge.
Whilst you're mentioning the Coffee Coaster Challenge, you mentioned it a few times now, just for those that are not members of Bolton IPMS. Can you just explain what it actually is?
Right, okay. So, back in February of this year, I set a challenge to the members of Bolton IPMS. I produced these cutouts of MDF bases, and we had two bases. One which was a tall base.
Tiny.
Yeah, which was 100, I've used the word 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters, and that was our tall coffee coaster.
4 inch by 4 inch to
everybody else. And I also produce a 150 millimeter square coaster, which was our grande coaster. And the challenge itself was to produce an interesting diorama which would tell a story using anything you wanted. So it could be aircraft, it could be ships, it could be very small ships, actually, spaceships, it could be anything, as long as it gave a really good story on why that particular model was together, and it's just got to look good, basically. That challenge will be finished for our September meeting, and we will have some prizes and trophies which we'll award, and we'll have this absolutely fantastic judge, myself.
Will the prizes have anything to do with Bandai?
Funny enough, no. But keep saying that, they might actually send some stuff over.
Oh, we love Bandai.
We do love Bandai, yes, but I'll go into that later on. So we'll be judging it in September, and hopefully I might be able to post some of those pictures on the social and the website.
Speaking of which, there are some pictures that people have actually promised in the previous 3 episodes to actually upload and still haven't done so.
Who's that then?
You,
Me?
Tim's finished a model, Wong is finished.
Oh.
Well,
Right.
well, I was planning on getting Mike to show me how to do that when he's next at our house. Right, okay. So you know your task next time you're here.
He does.
I do.
Yeah, I'll rectify that shortcoming, Brownie. In fact, I must learn how to use my iPhone.
Oh dear.
I'm giggling in the background.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I've got.
And what have you spent your money on since the last episode?
Right. So I did mention it last time, and I splashed the cash and bought a Bandai Scout Trooper and Speeder bike, which is as rare as hen's teeth.
What's that price label on there? £200?
Hang on. Could be yen. You never know.
Definitely a pound symbol on there, because I remember you said on the last episode that your wife listens to the pod.
She does, if I let her.
I'll send her a link.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay then, moving on. Tim.
Oh, right. Well, 2 words this week. They are bombs and rockets and drop tanks. So I've been doing some sub-assemblies on the Jag and some very tricky decaling, which led me to put the Jag slightly to one side as I picked up something from the shelf of doom, and it's the Hobby Boss 172nd A7 Corsair. I had this a few years. I started it, but I'm doing it in the Greek Air Force. And looking at the source pictures, it's a very dirty, unwashed, horrible-looking camouflage. It looks like something from a boneyard, but I really am doing it more to develop kind of skills and techniques. It's going quite well, and I'm really taking my time on it. So basically, I'm just going to get it filthied up.
Are these the really dirty, weathered Corsairs? Yeah.
When I told you about it, I showed you a picture and went, you said, she's a dirty girl.
Oh, that one.
Those
Right.
are exact words.
Yeah, she was a dirty girl. Yes, the aircraft.
So are we doing acquisitions or? Right. So now then, I think I mentioned that instead of sneaking in a kit, I actually got a commission from my good lady wife, Polly. Hello. And she said, would you like to do a fire engine? I'd love a fire engine because her dad was a TIE fighter. So going back to the 80s, when I built this Airfix
Is it 1904, is it? Or 1913?
Edwardian kind of era Dennis fire engine. So it'll be a blast from the past for me from the early 80s. So a mixtape.
Is that the one with Hugh Bartlemy Groove?
That's it.
Dibble grub.
It's funny you should mention that, Mark, because I replaced the omnibus with new. I replaced the omnibus with new figures, and I'm just thinking about looking up if there are less enormous.
Does that actually come with figures?
It does. It comes with 5 figures, if memory serves, and I don't know where this happened, but you know how you get old kits and they have yellowing decals? Well, this has not one set of yellowing decals, but two, followed by an absolutely pristine set of decals.
Shove the other ones in the window, let the sun at it, and they'll brighten up.
The little men, as my mum used to call them, are they're not too bad actually. So I will be taking advice. I'm thinking of going rattle can on the red, so to get a really good finish.
Break out the old Humbrol brass paint.
Right. Well, I was going to throw that open at some stage to say, what's your go-to red paint?
Some reds and brass. Any other colour on it?
Yes, there's the white hose, which I suspect would not be white for long. There's a wood effect ladder, a double ladder.
Flat tyres.
No. I've Steve Irwin, who does those regular informative talks at Bolton. He said, "Promise me you won't do another one with black tyres."
Oh, Dave Gray, or...
Yeah. So, I think he's the one who
especially if it's gloss black. That's definitely worse than gloss black. Oh.
No. I mean, he used the Tamiya rubber, but...
Tyre rubber, yeah.
Tyre rubber,
good
yeah.
paint, that one.
Yeah, the ICM 19... rubbish for dates. They do a fire engine, an American one, and that does have detachable actual rubber tyres that are kind of off-white.
Yeah, a lot of guys don't like them, but I don't mind the rubber tyres and stuff on kits.
No.
Oh, I don't mind. So I weather them up.
That's going slightly on tangent on that one, off tangent, I should say. It's always been a bit hit and miss for me with rubber tyres because sometimes the age of them, you find the tyres split.
Yeah, they get quite hard, don't they?
Yeah, and heat, obviously.
It's the oil coming out of the rubber. If they're stored for a long period of time with moisture and everything else, it's just the oil comes out of the rubber. It's not vulcanized like an actual tyre.
Right.
It's just rubber.
So
I always loved them on the old 124 scale Airfix stuff, you know, the Spitfire and the rubber wheels, didn't they?
Yeah. It looked real.
They look good, yeah. They didn't bounce quite so well. I have that.
Next is Mark.
Well, what's on the bench?
Just
at the minute, no, a compressor that I'm trying to put back together. It's one that Mike had off me, and he had problems with it, so I've took it back, put it back together, and it's working fine now. It's nice and quiet. We get plenty of air out of it, but what I'm trying to do is put the airflow regulator back on it in a way where I can put a manifold on it where I can connect a few airbrushes off it, see how it goes. But as far as kit's concerned, no, nothing on the bench at the minute, and not even anything that I'm kind of looking at the minute. I've got plenty to look at, but nothing that's grabbing me.
And since you've been on holiday and missed the last episode, going across to the United States, what have you actually been spending your cash on?
Well, I had a trip over to Halifax and I got the new ICM Darnia 217K1, which is the one with the sort of blunted nose. Looks like a bit like the HE111. So yeah, on the sprues, the plastics look great. Price-wise, my God, I was a little surprised because I always considered ICM to be fairly, a reasonably priced, but I suppose they need the money. But yeah, beautiful kit,
How big's that box, Mark? It looks massive.
It's not that bad, actually. If I get the old trusty tape measure out, it's a standard size of box. It's about 420 wide, 16.5 inches, by 10 3/4 across the top.
Right.
Depth-wise, it's 4 inches deep. So it's kind of their standard 48 scale.
It's more than 60 parts, Wonga.
It's definitely more than 60 parts.
You see. Well, it for me, it fails on that one because it's more than 60 parts. And also, it fail on getting into my house because my wife has put a Ryanair-styled frame where boxes go in it to see whether or not to go through the door.
What colour scheme's it in?
What colour scheme? You've got a choice of 4. There's one of them which you called...
Oh, the mirror wave.
Mirror wave.
Yeah.
The other 3 are all the standard Luftwaffe schemes. The RLM 71, 70 with they have a black underside on these because I'm assuming they were a night bomber or a night fighter. But there's one of them which is RLM 76 with the squiggles all over it.
It's an interesting scheme, but it's ideal for something like ammo lock and load pencil to be used, put your lines on.
Yeah.
Because trying to mask something like that would be a nightmare.
I don't think you could you?
You know, well, I have done it. I've done it in 72 and it wasn't that bad at the end. So you spray, I think what I did, going off memory, I sprayed the overall colour, top surface, the actual squiggle colour, and then I got little sausages of blue tack, tiny, and then went all up, covered it in that, and then I went over it with the RLM 76 to give you that bluey, and that worked all right.
Yeah, paint pens actually do the squiggle colours or the mirror wave colours, like the Yoo-Hoo and the Night Fighter variant.
Sounds as though it's just made for it.
Well, I don't know if I'd give it a go that way, to be honest with you. I'd have to do it's the old thing. You try it on something, wouldn't you? You get the old mule out and give it a go and see how it looks. If you're happy with it, on you go. If not, it's back to the old drawing board again, isn't it? And see what else you can come up with. But there are some models out there that I've seen that are absolutely amazing. And especially when you see some of these guys with the airbrushes, and they can just squiggle away, and they look fantastic. By the way, Brownie, did you actually spray any of the aqua colours?
Yes.
And how did that work out for you? Were they good?
Fantastic. The quality, I'm really impressed. Really impressed.
Similar to their other stuff, did it behave similar to the normal MRP stuff?
I've not used MRP lacquer that much, so I've still got the L plates on, but to be honest, yeah, I didn't have a problem with it. Really happy, and also on the advantage, it's exactly the same shades as their lacquer range, but you don't get the smell. That's the advantage.
The nice bit.
Moving on to someone who's been doing some negative modelling. Boulders, what you got on the bench?
I've got the new Academy P8 Poseidon, which is I've sprayed in the wrong colour, so I've just stripped it. So I'll have to get that paint for that because the call out.
Can you just say that again? Are you actually admitting fault there? You sprayed it the wrong colour.
Well, unfortunately, I've used their instructions and their call out for FS 16515. They actually say it's H338 in Mr. Hobby when it's not, because it's a different FS number. So I'll have to get that colour. So that'll have to go on the back bench for a bit. I'm actually cracking on with a biplane.
No way.
Yeah, biplane. I'm actually
SE58.
No, I'm actually doing.
Oh, Walrus.
Walrus.
Is that the Airfix one?
Yeah, Airfix 48 Walrus, and I'm doing it as number 5 CF Royal Australian Air Force, and it was in Australia and New Guinea in early 43. So it's got matte aircraft blue on the underside with extra dark sea grey and matte dark slate grey on top. So
Sounds good, that one.
Yep, and the good thing is I've actually got the rigging diagram on the opposite side. Obviously, for those that can't see, Airfix providing the instructions, the rigging diagram.
Did I mention that I actually hate rigging?
You did?
Oh, right, okay. I thought I thought I'd bring it up. Yeah.
But that's one of my lessons for this year is to do rigging, because I've got quite a few things that need to be rigged. So I need to learn.
Did you ever pick up that SE5A? I know you was after one for ages.
Yes, I've got one.
So you've got a bit of rigging there to do eventually.
Yep, a Spanos Suisse SE5A from Edward to do his 41 squadron. I've also got 72nd pirate ship to rig.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I've got that.
Have you done anything with that?
I've done a little bit with it. I've had to do a few fettling things to it because it wasn't.
Have you took a bit more of it apart?
Had to, because certain things weren't aligned. And then I've got, for rigging is my learning curve this year, because I need to get on the Titanic, because I've had that now for 6 years and it's still in the loft.
Hang on, that's the 200 one, isn't it?
Yeah. It actually came out the loft last week and smacked me in the face. I was in the loft putting some stuff away, and then all of a sudden the Titanic went straight through the loft arch as I was coming out the bathroom and hit me square.
So it sank again.
Yes.
Did you ever play any ice on the bruise?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. Bad joke. What a bad joke, Brownie. Bad joke.
And what have you been spending your cash on then?
Nothing. I've bought nothing.
Good grief. That's novel.
I've got stuff to build. I just need to start building, and that's what I've started doing. So I've built quite a few things. I've got an S100 fast boat. That's all built. It just needs painting. So I'm just going to get a load built and then just paint them all.
So here's a question for you, Boulders. When you said you stripped the paint off, what did you use? Because I've never been successful at stripping paint off, apart from the door frame and the architrave. But go on.
So I used to be dangerous, and I used to use Mr. Self-Leveling Thinner. I used to put it on the paintbrush and then wipe it off instantly. But VMS do something called Clean Slate, and it's absolutely superb. Really is. It'll get rid of enamel, acrylic. It smells very minty when you smell it, which is a bit unusual. Yeah, like menthol. You can't help it because obviously you got the lid off and you're dipping a brush into it and then you obviously point it over the areas.
You're not drinking it? No, don't drink it.
No. But it literally does.
Okay, you said it takes enamel and acrylic off. How will it take lacquer?
Well, it takes lacquer perfectly fine because once you've added Mr. Self-Leveling Thinner to Mr. Hobby Aqueous, it changes it to a lacquer anyway because you're using a lacquer thinner. Comes off. That's what I've used on that. Comes off straight away.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Sounds good.
I did think it was a bit expensive.
How much did that cost you?
I think it was about 12 quid.
Models Without Borders is proud to announce the launch of its first ever global online event, Virtual Model Exhibition 2025, or the shorthand version, VMX 25. VMX 25 invites scale modelers from around the world to showcase their work in a fully virtual format that reflects the hobby's growth and diversity. Entrants may enter models in any of the exhibition's 11 classes. Registration, which will cost $10, will be open from the 1st of August until the 15th, and each participant can enter up to 5 models. Builders can choose whether each model is evaluated, display only, or both. Evaluations will use MWB's skill-based system, which considers the modeler's goals, experience and craftsmanship. The system is designed to support growth, celebrate creativity and recognise achievement across all skill levels, without comparison or competition. VMX 25 winners will receive a unique gold, silver or bronze awards or a certificate of merit. VMX 25 will take place after registrations are complete, and for updates please visit www.modelers, that's with 2 L's, modelers.org, and subscribe or follow Modelers Without Borders on social media.
Every small business has a big story. Precision by Passion tells it. spotlighting the artisans who turn knowledge and love of detail into something lasting.
Right then, Benchmates, it's time for Precision by Passion, our feature that spotlights the brilliant single-operator businesses that are fueling the modelling world, one printed detail or hand-cast part at a time. For our first ever guest on this feature, we're thrilled to be joined by John Colasanti from Matters of Scale, a modeller and designer whose 3D printed upgrades and components have been quietly making waves across workbenches worldwide. John's very kindly sent us some sample parts that he kindly shipped over from the States, which I must add is not a prerequisite to come onto this feature, but was greatly appreciated. And let me tell you, we had a proper nose through them and all have declared the detail is exquisite. Think micro rivets or fixings, crisp geometry, and scale enhancements. They don't just look good, they fit like they should. The Pratt & Whitney R2859 for the Mini Art P47D bubble top you sent across, words can't generate an image adequately to describe the level of detail. So let's dive in and find out what drives the man behind Matters of Scale. John, welcome to Beyond the Box Art. If you could just start off by telling us what your backstory is in modelling, and for those who haven't come across Matters of Scale yet, what is it you do? And how did it all begin?
Well, thank you, Brownie. That was quite an introduction. I really appreciate it. I really enjoy your podcast, and it's great meeting you guys.
Thank you.
My backstory is quite similar to a lot of others that I've heard. My dad was an avid scale modeler, and I would watch him, as young as, probably 6 or 7 years old. I would watch him build his creations, and he did very elaborate, very long-term projects. He was a ship modeler, a car modeler primarily, and I would just watch. We didn't have a relationship where we built together really so much, but I just would watch his workbench. And when he was away at work, I would go over to his workbench and just marvel at the parts and occasionally touch them and move them around, and he would know when I did that. So that's my background. It's from a very young age, and I've modeled my whole life, taking the typical breaks that we all do. And I kind of re-entered the hobby maybe about 15 years ago, and I started taking it really seriously. When I was a kid, I built a lot of almost all the Tamiya armor, but to a very poor standard. But then I started taking it more seriously because I'm kind of really into art and creating things. So I studied oil painting for a long time, and I decided that really wasn't for me. But model building, when I came back to model building, I decided to take it seriously and look at it as my creative outlet, if you will. So that's how we got here. And as far as like the 3D work, being an ex-engineer, actually, I have that side of me also. So the 3D modeling and using the computer to express my ideas was kind of a natural fit. It was almost perfect. So when I started taking that seriously, maybe around 10 years ago, I really found it to be the perfect balance of art and engineering. So model building, 3D, and creating these works has what it all culminated.
Okay, you obviously had a passion for 3D modelling for over a decade, as you just said. How did that morph into creating parts for models that you're actually building at the time, and also for producing parts for the scale modelling community?
So I didn't really thrive in the engineering environment, creating, parts for real engineering applications. But I found I thrived more in the idea of creating essentially toys. I could still indulge my passion for engineering, but not have to actually create engineering parts for real vehicles like aircraft and so forth. So this gives me the ability to still play engineer, but also create these parts that I used for my own models. And really, that's where it all started. It all started with creating models for my own builds, creating accessories and things. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of just naturally, I started giving my parts away and making things for friends. And then it grew to the point where everyone was telling me, you should do this. You have good stuff. You should make it available to everyone. And last year is when I really started my website and I started Matters of Scale. So it was a slow, steady evolution with no real intent to do this as a business. It just kind of evolved that way.
Okay. Well, I believe you started out using Rhino, but you were an early adopter of Fusion 360. What drew you to 360 and how has it changed the way that you work?
Yeah, so I think what drew me to 360 was the fact that it was, first of all, a cloud-based program, so I could run it in multiple locations. So I could run it, I'm a very mobile person as far as work goes.
Yep.
So the ability for me to work on multiple workstations without having to worry about carrying files around made it very attractive. It also has a lot of support in the community, a lot of videos. And when I was learning, those were very helpful. Rhino's a great program. I have no issues with Rhino. In fact, I've often thought about going back to Rhino because it has a lot of features that I really like. Every 3D program has got pluses and minuses to them. So, it's pick your weapon, pick the weapon you choose and go with it. And that's just the one I happen to go with. I've dabbled in others, and I always came back to Fusion 360 because it has the features I want. Plus, it has what's called a forms environment, which lets you do like organic shapes. So all that combined, just kept me with Fusion 360, but it's not the only choice out there.
Okay, thanks. Yes.
As I said earlier, John, it's really good to have you on the podcast and to hear more about your company. So I just wonder if you could talk us through how the design process works when it starts as a concept, taking it through to CAD drawings, and then obviously to a finished product. What does that journey look like for a typical product?
Yeah, so it starts with research, collecting as much information as I can about the subject. Let's take, for example, the newest thing I've done is the Jaguar intakes. I really like the Jaguar. I'm a big aviation fan. And when this kit, I really like what Airfix has been doing lately also. I think for a while they were, disappointing a lot of us. Let's just put it that way. But the past, couple of years, 2-3 years, they have come out with just what I think is world-class kits. And so when they announced the Jaguar, I was all over that because I really like the Jaguar. And I noticed that they didn't have intakes. The intakes just run into the kit and then they just stop into a big void. There's no full-length intake. And I like to display models sometimes in flight or on the tarmac. And I'm not really, I'm not opposed to block-offs, but I wanted to display this in flight. So I set about the task of creating intakes. And so I collected lots of photos. I have a couple of books on the Jaguar. My research process involves scanning the internet for as many photos as I can find. And then talking to experts is really one of the best ways. So some people contacted me, giving me some feedback. There's a lot of guys out there who have firsthand experience with the Jaguar and can educate me. So it's really, a community thing, using photos from the internet, using photos from books, and also engaging experts. That's how it starts. And then from there, it's just a matter of, getting all your dimensions and drawing the parts in CAD. In some ways, that's the easy part because once you know what something looks like, it's just a matter of drawing it, in 3 dimensions. And it's test prints, multiple test prints over and over again to fit it. I wanted to make sure that it fit really well to the kit so it wasn't going to leave steps or gaps. And then after that, it's a process of refining the test print so that the surface finish is good. The intakes took a lot of time to get right. It doesn't seem like it's that complex, but all those factors had to come together. The fit, the finish had to all come together to be a product that I could put out there and be proud of. And so, yeah, that's more or less the process I go through with everything.
Just a quick injection here. Obviously, for those that aren't aware, there's 2 different types of intakes that you actually supply. There's the closed auxiliary doors on the side of the intake, plus if the aircraft has got its engines running or obviously in flight, as you were talking about, you've got some with the sprung-loaded intake doors, the auxiliary doors open. So if you were looking at John's intakes, get the right set. If you've actually got it shut down on the apron, canopy open, the doors need to be closed rather than open.
Thanks for clarifying that. In fact, I'm building one now, and as you can see, I'm using the open door version. So this version will be for low speed flight or on the tarmac with the engines running. But yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Brownie.
Not a problem.
That's very interesting. Obviously, John, you've touched on the fact that when you started in 3D printing, creating parts for models, it was about enhancing your builds. At what point did you decide, actually, I'm going to start making parts for other people?
So it really is still about my builds and friends and customers. I haven't gone to the point really where I'm just making parts for something I have no intention of building or one of my friends isn't building. Like, for example, I'll do some work. A friend, a good friend of mine will come and say, hey, I want to do this and you want to work together on it. And I'll usually say yes. And then we'll work together on a part. And then I'll take that part and put it in my catalog, right? Same thing for my own builds. It's something that I'm going to work on for myself. I'll put it in my catalog. Like right now I'm working on the an engine for the upcoming Qatari BF109K4. That is a kit I intend to build. So I haven't really gone to that point yet where I'm building something just for the community and not something that interests me. I'm not saying that I will never do that, but right now I have enough to work on that interests me and or friends that I haven't gotten to that point where I'm just making parts for selling and no interest in it myself.
Yeah. And just as like a small supplementary question, how easy is it for you to scale up or scale down your particular designs? I mean, for example, some of the propeller corrections that you have in 48 scale. If you had modelers interested in 72nd or 32nd or 35th, how easy is it for you to start and adjust the existing designs without having to go back to the workbench and start again?
Yeah, so I'm actually struggling with that right now. I'm trying to scale down some of my engine stuff to 72nd scale. And it's more difficult than I thought it would be, especially because like the wires don't print at 72nd scale the way I have them. So I have to go back. I'm doing test prints now and I have to go back and resize everything. It gets very complex. Other things are much easier to scale. Like, for example, you mentioned propellers. Those would actually scale pretty easily because it's just like a shape without very, very high detail wires or nuts and bolts that wouldn't show up. So I think the answer to that question is it depends. Some things would scale pretty easily and others require me to go back and redo significant parts of it. Scaling up is a little bit easier. Like I scaled up my right cyclone to 32nd scale. And that went a lot smoother because, your wires, for example, are getting bigger. And so if they end up being too big, I may have to make them smaller, but going the other way is creating more problems for going smaller.
It'll be rewarding when you can produce parts in the best scale, 70 seconds.
I've got a lot of requests for that. I intend to follow through with that.
Which kind of leads on really well to the next question, thinking about detailing. Like, is there a balance for you when you're creating parts where you say, okay, now it's detailed enough, or do you think actually it can never be detailed enough? There's always an extra step, or what kind of balance do you try and strike with your parts when you're designing them?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I tend to get really buried into the details, sometimes too much, where it doesn't even make a difference, right? Because, and I'm getting better at that. I'm learning each time how to, I call it abstracting the real thing, because honestly, if you had no limits, you would never be finished with some of these things. You could delve into details forever and never really complete anything. So I have to, as I go on and make these things and print them and look at what they look like after they come off the printer, and more importantly, actually use them on a project and see what shows up after you paint it and detail it and weather it. I'm starting to learn about what makes a difference and what doesn't. And I don't think I'll ever be one to make a part so high level that it doesn't have any detail. I'll always have a lot of detail in my parts, but I'm starting to understand what I can leave out. So I think the answer to your question is, I think you can leave out a lot more than I do right now. And I'm getting to that balance as time goes on.
Well, that's really interesting. You've spoken about your upcoming project focusing around the Qatari BF109K. Are there any other kind of projects that you're looking at in the pipeline? Any other inspirations, ideas that you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot on the pipeline. Well, I'm still trying to, a lot of I've done the double wasp R2800, but there are a lot of applications for that. And I focused first on the P47 Thunderbolt for the mini art and Tamiya kits. One of the things I'm trying to do, which is a little unusual, is I'm trying to make these fitments so that they're drop fits to the individual kits rather than a generic engine. And I realize there may be a need for a generic engine also for people that are scratch building or want to put it on display. But for the most part, I'm trying to do them to fit specific kits because I think most modelers understand that, the Mini Yard and the Tamiya kit, even though it's the same exact P47B Thunderbolt bubble top, the diameter of the engine in the kit is not exactly the same because the cowl thickness might be a little different between the kits, or the way the companies have decided to model them might be a millimeter different in diameter. Well, so what that requires the modeler to do is to shave the whole engine down or to shave down the inside. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm making them so that they're drop fit. So I want to extend my engines to a lot of other kits, both 72nd, 48th scale, 32nd, maybe 35th scale, if that's applicable. So that's an ongoing thing. As far as like new things I'm working on, I have the Qatari K4. There's a whole lot of things I'm working on. I can't remember off the top of my head. One thing I'm working on is a project to do the engines for the XB70 Valkyrie. That friend of mine is Chris Dirks is creating a 48th scale Valkyrie, and he'll have that at Nats. So I'm need to get that done in the next week or so to get it to him so he can have it in his model. Other than that, I can't think of anything offhand. I should have had a little list of stuff, but I always announce what I'm working on Facebook and also on my website. I always announce what I'm releasing. So if you just keep your eye on that, you'll always know what's coming.
And you've said on your website that you enjoy hearing from other modelers. Have you had any suggestions or feedback that really shaped how you approach your product range?
Yeah, definitely. I do get a lot of people, giving me suggestions, and I'd say there's a theme among them, which is like, provide this in a different scale. That definitely influences what I'm doing. People also give me feedback on what I've done, and I've changed designs based on that. I have a few real experts that contact me on a regular basis and give me feedback on what I'm doing. And these guys are, they send me reference information that I can't find elsewhere, So yeah, I definitely take into account what people are saying. People have come up with some great ideas for products. And, it's really part of why I do this.
No, that's really, really good. What's been your favorite moment so far? Has it seemed like parts that you've printed off there's been a show-winning model, or is it from somebody from halfway around the world that's used your products?
Yeah, all of the above. I really enjoy the community aspect of it and the camaraderie and the fact that we're all doing the same thing with the same goals. But yeah, when someone reaches out to me or I meet them at a show and they mention how they like what I've done, is very rewarding. Absolutely. Very rewarding.
Well, absolutely will be, yeah. How do you stay in touch with the hobby community, John? Do you use forums, social media? Do you go to shows? Obviously, I don't know how it's worked out in the States. Obviously, I know that you've got the nationals, or is it just like word of mouth?
Yeah, so I primarily am on Facebook. I have my own page, and then I'm in a lot of the various modeling groups. So I post as myself, my name, John Colasante, and also as Matters of Scale, depending on, what I'm doing. Sometimes I've accidentally posted as one or the other, but for the most part,
we've all done that.
It's easily done.
It's kind of tough when you have those two handles and you don't know which one to post as. But I try to, so Facebook, I would say, is my primary, social media for modeling, for scale modeling. I don't use Facebook for personal uses at all. I stopped doing that years and years ago. Just got too much. But for scale modeling, I'm on there all the time, keeping in touch with the community that way. I don't really, if I go on forums, it's just to, when I search something and a forum post comes up, I'll look through it, but I'm not posting on forums. For real life, I go to local shows. I meet a lot of people through there. I have a whole bunch of friends that I get together with several times a year at local shows. And then I go to the nationals, the IPMS nationals, and meet up with people that I don't see very often because they may be living much farther away. Yeah, so it's all of the above. I definitely, cherish the face-to-face part of it. It's a big part of it, I would say.
No, absolutely. It's the same with our shows over here. It's always good to be able to speak to people face-to-face and obviously, come across with ideas. The last question I've got for you, John, is there any new designs or changes in direction in the works for matters of scale that you can hint or share with us today?
Yeah, I think the one thing is I want to, I've been focusing on aviation. Almost everything I have on my site right now is aircraft related. And although, if you look on my Facebook page or my blog, you'll see almost everything I've built in the last several years has been aircraft. But I'm actually very interested in armor subjects. And I built, as I mentioned earlier, when I was a kid, I built a lot of armor, and I have a lot of armor in my stash. And I do build armor over on the side. I don't really show it off because I don't finish it really. This is the problem. But I have a lot of armor. I want to get more into that. I've done a lot of designs for armor, which I haven't put on my site yet. I've given it away to friends and things, but I want to get more into, there will be eventually a part of my site that's going to be ground vehicle focused. I've done, like I said, I've done a lot of accessories and things like that. And I'm trying to think of how I'm going to organize it. But yeah, that's going to be the big change, I think, to answer your question.
Fantastic. And finally, if someone wants to get in touch, what's the best way to reach you?
I think the best way to reach me is if you go to mattersofscale.com, I have a contact form there. And you can write me anything you want through there, and I'll get back to you by email. You can also reach me on Facebook. If you go to my Facebook page, you can chat, using the Facebook chat, or send me a private message on Facebook through Matters of Scale. Any of those methods work well.
Well, John, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing your process, your passion, and your precision with us. We'll pop all the links for Matters of Scale onto our socials and to our website. And for our fellow benchmates who've got a subject crying out for the aftermarket, loving glorious 3D, get in touch with John and support someone who's truly designing from a modeler's point of view. John, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. Right, everyone, for this episode, we're joined by someone with the most important lanyard in the place, Mr. Paul Regan, President of IPMS UK. Hello, Paul. How are you doing?
Hello, Brownie. You all right?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing?
Nice to catch up with you and the guys again. Pretty good, thanks. Nice to escape from work for once.
Well, we can get that sorted for you. You can go straight back in.
Absolutely. So, yeah, got an evening off.
Fantastic.
I'm yours for your pleasure.
I'd rephrase that completely, and that's going into the outtakes.
Indeed.
It's going to be one of those evenings.
Yes. Okay, let's start that again. No, we can't mark that out.
Keep going.
Okay. Well, let's start at the very beginning. For those that never heard of IPMS before, and why not, how did IPMS come about? And what role did the UK play in establishing the international network of societies we see today?
Okay, well, first thing I suppose I ought to say is IPMS is what we're always known as these days, because that actually stands for the International Plastic Modelers Society. These days with the UK behind it, which it's had for quite a lot of years, actually. It started in 1963, exactly 1 month it came into existence before I did. So I'm not entirely a life member. But it started, as so many things did, with some guys who went out for a drink and did the same sort of thing. They got together down in London, like most things in the UK, it seems to come out there, decided that there was a need for something that talked about the way model making was changing. It was moving away from, for want of a better term, model engineering and moving towards what we now see as a plastic kit, which at the time was thought of as being a little bit toy-like. But these guys thought that it was more than that. And I think the fact that we're still here talking about it 60 years later proves they were right. It started as a very small group of people. As I say, they met after work in London. So it was a pretty self-selecting group. But then it expanded out around the UK as various people heard about it. It first expanded into sort of the Midlands. Birmingham was quite a hive for a bit. Sheffield became quite a home. And then gradually it's evolved over the years to cover the country in the way we know it now. We've got, at the moment, something in the order of 200 groups dotted around the UK, each of which is a branch meeting somewhere, although 1 or 2 of them are virtual. So given the number I was on this call, we could actually be considered a branch, probably. we've always said, myself and some other guys used to say, Mike McAvoy, one or two of the other vets of the society, used to say we had a branch that met every Sunday of an air show at Duxford. And we met at 11 o'clock in the Hannett stand, and there would invariably be 10 to 15 of us in that stand. So a branch is what it can be. It can be any group of people, anybody who meets, anybody who discusses the hobby in any way at any time. But the format is that a branch is a local area club with a minimum of 5 members, 6 members, ideally with a lot more. We've grown over the years to cover the UK in that way. Probably within about a year of starting it in London, it spread. It started out as the British Plastic Modeler Society for about 3 months, but then became IPMS because it spread overseas. Initially, first contact was the US. People knew people, so it expanded over there. For a while, it was just called BPMS, and everybody was a member of that. Then it became IPMS, and again, everybody was a member of it. But then, as the network started to grow around the world, it became pretty impractical to run a worldwide society out of people's bedrooms and spare rooms and so on. So each national entity has gone off and created its own organisation. It's a real tribute, though, to IPMS UK, that in order to set up as one, every one of these that does it comes and asks our permission, even though in reality, there's not a darn thing we could do to stop them, but they come along and they say yes, and we give them a little bit of guidance, and we say, this is how we do it. They go away and sign up and adapt to that. And now it's safe to say we're on 6 continents. We're not in Antarctica, although I bet there are some people down there who make models, but there's not enough to make a group. We cover the world pretty completely now, and the UK is the founder. We're still considered the home, and you see this through those who've attended it, our little event at Model World, called Scale Model World, where the overseas modelers come to join us for our celebration every year. And we'll come to that, I'm sure, later in this conversation. Does that give you a starting point, boys?
Fantastic. Okay, so how would you describe the mission of IPMS today compared to how obviously it started out? And how has that evolved over the decades?
Good point, because it definitely has changed. When we came into being in 63, effectively 64, the aim was that it was the bunch of people who had started using these so-called toys and wanted to have them taken a bit more seriously. And it's fair to say that they set standards. And at the time, you had to bring some models along and show them to your colleagues before you'd be accepted in the group. And that kind of mentality, I hate to use the term, but I think it would be very fair to say some of the early days, the society was very much made up of rivet count. Bearing in mind the kits we were talking about at the time, which were pretty basic, they were hugely into scratch building and converting and making something out of something else, but they still set their standards to be very high, and you had to qualify to be a member. Not just to go in the contest, you had to qualify to be a member. Now, I'm delighted to say that the society has completely about-faced that. We no longer really even stand too much behind our International Plastic Modeler Society. Well, that is our logo, that is our brand, for want of a better term, because it's practically impossible to change it. But the reality is we say we are IPMS UK, the Society for Scale Modelling, because we support every type of scale modelling across the piece. There's no subject that we don't do, and there's no type of modelling that we don't really embrace. It's not to say certain groups won't want to specialise in things, particularly SIGs, but across the piece, you can make models out of paper and still find a home within an IPMS branch. You can make, we all know plastic has now turned into metal, resin, etched brass, 3D printing. They're all models. So we quietly don't stress the word plastic too much these days, for obvious reasons. However, one area we do, and that's obviously the competition. So for competition rules, there are quite strict rules about the makeup of kits and so forth. But that's only for those who enter contests. But for the rest of us, everything's welcome. My own branch here in Leeds, a chap was being badgered to come along to one of our meetings because we meet in a bar. He said he was talking about modelling one night instantly and got sucked in, and we got him to the branch meeting. He pulled out a big box full of Warhammer models. And despite the fact that pretty much the meetings revolve around World War II aeroplanes, frankly, everybody went, wow, caught, blimey, how did you do those? And it's fairly safe to say he's going to be coming back, and staying with the group, because that's what it is. It shouldn't be about what you make or how you make it. It's about everything. And it's got to evolve with the times. 10 years ago, 3D printing, wouldn't have talked about it. Now we do. 25 years ago, we didn't talk about Express. Now we do. I had a conversation with Andrew Dealey. It used to be ED Models in Birmingham on Sunday at a show. Blamed him for some of this because him and his dad started making white metal ejector seats similar to the Aero Club ones, but they made them in large quantities. Airfix put them in kits that were on the shelf. So suddenly, what's a standard kit? You get in white metal in it now, and undercarriages and things like that. The hobby evolves, and we have to follow it. If we stand behind, we only do this, we only do that, we're never going to have a future. And the fact we're doing so well at the moment says we've got a future, and we're following what people want.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Okay, Wongy.
The membership spans a wide range of interests, from aircraft, armour to sci-fi and figures. How does IPMS UK support such a diverse modelling community?
Kind of addressed some of that earlier, but my view is, and the society's view, is that all of those things are modelling. It's very fair to say that the majority of IPMS members probably make aeroplanes, or at least make them at some point. After that, you'd have military vehicles. After that, you're into ships, cars, and everything else. But the truth is that they're all versions of the same thing. There aren't that many modelers who don't do different things. There are some. I know a chap who does nothing but Phantoms. I think most of you on the pod do as well. Except he expanded into Hercules a year or two ago, didn't he? But that's his interest, and that's fine. But equally, most people won't do any one subject, and they do the lot. We cover everything. Within our magazine, it's a magazine published by Modelers for Modelers, by members. If we get articles, we will print them. Subject to getting them in, of course. We have a modeler in Scotland who's absolutely does exceptional sci-fi models and space models. Relatively minor interest within the hobby in terms of people using it, but his articles and photography are superb. So every year he gets a cover because his photographs need it, because they're so good. You can pretty much guarantee if he submits, it will be there. And people genuinely read these articles and that you take something away from it. There's usually some little nugget that you can learn from and pick up an idea that you can use on whatever it is you're doing today. And we do support each other very much that way. For the specialists, of course, I haven't mentioned them yet, we do have these special interest groups. If you are into a particular subject, my friend with these Phantoms, there is a SIG that exists for people who are interested in Phantoms and Phantoms alone. It won't be a local group because it's not going to be an area-based thing, but these are usually virtual nowadays. And they're a bunch of guys and girls who get together, usually get together only at shows, particularly Scale Model World, and they display and talk about their own things. But some of them have grown into having really big impacts on the hobby. There is one very bespoke SIG, specialist SIG, just changed its name actually in the last couple of months, but it used to be called the Harrier SIG. They've now tagged on Jaguars as well, so it's now Harrier and Jaguar SIG.
It's the Jaguar.
Jaguar. Yeah. There we go, with another member there. Now, it's a very big SIG. It's got around 100 members who contribute in some way or say they're members. Probably got about 30 who are really active. It has contacts with people. It knows the right people to ask for things. Members of the SIG have included John Farley, the test pilot. He was genuinely a member of the SIG. Didn't make models himself, but he wanted to be part of it because of the interest and the knowledge.
John was a fantastic guy to actually just have a conversation with.
Oh, yeah.
If you mentioned the word Harrier, that was him gone. No matter what the subject was or what you was actually in the context was, you just had to mention that, and that was it. You had a half-hour conversation whether you wanted it or not.
John came to Scale Model World to do a talk once. He did an hour and a half talk, which lasted 2.5, but also he never left for the weekend. He stayed for the full 2 days and never left. He was standing on the stand, talking to anybody, signing things, doing what he liked. He loved it. And when the SIG did a project with the Navy to see the Sea Harrier out of service, we've produced, and I actually did some models for this one. We were asked to produce 30 Sea Harrier models for the final banging out dinner of the 899 Squadron. And as a thank you for it, we were invited to visit Yeovilton and take whatever photos and sit in Harriers and do what we wanted. When John heard about it through the newsletter, he wanted to come because he'd never actually sat in an FRS-2 Harrier. We got him into the last type of Harrier he'd never been in.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And that's the kind of thing that, that's the specialities areas. So you asked about the generality, and I know I've gone down the special, but nothing is out of order. Nothing is banned. Whatever people make, provided it is within the realms of decency, and who defines that? If it's a Scale Model World, me. But, as long as it's not in some way banned or whatever, then it's welcome. Whatever it's made of, whoever makes it, from a 6-year-old to a 96-year-old, from wherever, you're welcome in the hobby and the society, as far as I'm concerned.
No, that's a fantastic answer. Thank you, Paul. I'd just like to say that being a bit of a Harrier aficionado as well, I ended up winning the Steve Haig Award.
Memorial.
Yes, and I held it for 2 years, only because of COVID. So that's my only claim to fame. I've got another question for you. So many IPMS branches around the world. I think you might have touched on this before.
Uh-huh.
How does IPMS UK maintain international relationships? And do you still consider yourselves as the parent of the global family?
I did kind of touch on this earlier, didn't I? And yeah, the answer is very much yes. It is an honour, not a word that gets used in the 2020s these days much, but that so many people look to us for leadership, for help, and for guidance when they're wanting to set things up. They ask for our help with, anything we do. If they're trying to run a show for the first time, then we'll give them what we know about running a show, which may or may not help them. It depends. We will certainly help as many people as we can in that way. Every IPMS member anywhere in the world is welcome at Scale Model World as if they were an IPMS UK member, i.e. for free. I know our UK members effectively, they're the subscribers. They effectively, to some degree, pay for the show a little bit. But overseas people, they're absolutely welcome in exactly the same way that we would normally be welcome to visit any show anywhere else in the world. I landed in Prague 20 years ago on business for a while. Knowing that Czech Republic's a bit of a modelling haven, I had looked up where their branch met, and one night took my courage in my hands and went and knocked on the door, metaphorically. Being in Prague, obviously it was in a bar. Thought I can always get a beer and escape and just pretend I'm in the wrong place. But went in, and somebody recognised me from Telford or wherever, sort of came over, shook my hand, said, hello, and started to speak English. Then dragged me, but walked me into the rest of the meeting. And for that rest of that evening, the meeting was conducted in English for me.
Oh, that's lovely.
Because most people in Prague do speak English, and I'm afraid I speak very little Czech.
But free beer as well.
There was quite a lot of beer. Although as I was there, technically I was there on business, so I ended up buying around, I think, for most people. We find there are people we know from dealing shows. Quite a lot of us have visited the US Nationals, which is the other big show. So quite a lot of people get to go over there and sample it. But particularly around Europe, there was a bit of an issue a few years ago after Brexit. There was a bit of fear by everybody about travel and all that kind of thing. Seems to have gone away now. We're hitting Belgium again in October, myself and some other guys. We're doing a lads' weekend away. 8 of us going over to the Belgian Nationals, plastic and steel. Really good show. In sense, feel and balance, everything very much like Scale Model World. And a fantastic excuse to go and have a weekend away and stay in a hotel and eat some food and have some drinks and do some sightseeing, go to other places. We usually go to somewhere, Waterloo, Brussels Aircraft Museum, wherever it may be that we choose to go. The fraternity is so strong when you do that. I regularly write about it in the magazine, talk to people about it at shows. I think, get together, get 3 or 4 of you, get a car, get on a ferry and go to one of these shows, because you will find that it's so welcoming. The community spirit of it all is tremendous. And I think that's already showing what you guys are doing on this pod, isn't it? In that you're picking up people from all over the world are listening in on this.
Oh, they like a bit of northernness.
Well,
Believe it or not, yeah.
maybe I helped there or not, I don't know. But it's the modelling world is exactly that. It's the world. It doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter what you do. We're all part of the same community. And I think that's really strong.
I think not being married helps.
Certainly does for me.
I do think exactly that, Paul. You can come from all sorts of income groups. You've all classes. Do we do classes anymore? Maybe not. But different languages. We all still speak the same thing, which is plastic models. We speak models.
Exactly right.
And that's the main thing about it.
I did write something once years ago, and I said something, bringing the world together piece by piece was sort of a definition of modelling.
I like that one.
But we didn't take it much further. But it came out. We had it for a while. That is the sort of brand. It's all about people. We can stick kits together. We can make models anywhere we like. And it can be an intensely solitary hobby. And I think that's where a society like IPMS can add a hell of a lot to it. And I think it can make a real difference to people.
I think that's why a lot of us like to get together a lot, don't we? It is a solitary hobby, as you say, but we as soon as you hear of a club or anything like that, I must admit, in my case, I shied away for a long time, and then I discovered Bolton and the 580, and I don't know, confident. That's the one. Yeah. That was me. I was away. Yeah, absolutely.
There was something Wongi said a couple of weeks ago, that we weren't just a group within Bolton IPMS. We were more or less a family.
Yeah. I truly believe that, because you develop a friendship over a hobby, and then that friendship suddenly becomes more concerning about the welfare of all the other members of the group. If you've not seen somebody for quite a while, you inquire, they're still part of the club, or how's things going? That sort of thing. So it does help a lot of people in that way.
I think at a certain age, Paul, it's more a case of, are they still around? Is he still pretty?
Yeah, can I have his kits?
That's one that always comes up, isn't it?
Yeah. It's
what happened to the stash?
You're absolutely right, and I think earlier this year I wrote for IPMS magazine. I wrote a little bit of one of my brain dumps that I do occasionally, and it was around the subject of mental health and also physical health, I guess, as well to some degree. That let's all look out for each other out there, because we're all getting older. I think it's inevitable. One of the things we have to accept is this is somewhat an aging hobby. We do have younger people coming into it, but not in the numbers we have the older people, and we need to support them as long as we can. And there are people dotted around the country who we don't see them at a show suddenly. Well, ask the question, do you need a lift? Do you need somebody, can we go together? It can be, personally, I'd far rather drive 200 miles with a car with 2 or 3 people in it so we can talk and stop somewhere and get a coffee and share the petrol money than do it solo. There's a lot of comradeship and a lot of help. And as Mark was saying, before we started actually recording this, and you turn up in a local retail outlet near us here in Yorkshire, and suddenly everybody's talking to everybody.
Yeah, and putting the worlds to rights.
We don't just go in there and buy some kits and run out. I've never really, very rarely been in there and got out within inside an hour or an hour and a half. Just because you end up talking to the people who are there. You may have met, you may not have met, you don't know. But it's a community. And it really does help to break barriers down, I think. And that can be, I think every modeler can contribute to that, whether they're in a society or not.
Is a good thing.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Boulders, you've got a question, haven't you?
IPMS UK plays host to Scale Model World, which obviously some of us do know about, and it's the biggest show of its kind. What goes into organising an event of that scale, and how do you see it growing in the future?
Okay, I'll take the last bit first. I'll be honest, I don't see it growing, frankly, because I think we're at a level that, I don't know how we can grow it much. Little bits here and there, but I don't think there's a great deal more size-wise it can be. We know, based on all the metrics we can get our hands on, i.e. number of people attending, number of models, floor area, all these kind of metrics, it is the biggest scale modelling event on the planet. For those who don't know it, it takes place in Telford, in Shropshire, in England, pretty near in the Midlands. Relatively easy to get to. It is always, at the moment anyway, on Remembrance Weekend, as we have it here in the UK, which is November. We've grown it over the years. It started out in the 60s as being a competition-only event, and it happened on a Friday evening. They all took their models to a restaurant above a department store in London. The models were placed on tables, and then everybody went for dinner in the restaurant. An hour later, they'd had their dinner, and they picked up some trophies, and they went home, and that was it. Now, for some of us, it's a 4-day event. For quite a lot, it's 3, with a day of setup on Friday and 2 days of actual show days. Encompasses an area around 10,000 square metres, which is a moderately large-sized building. Puts it in the same sort of scale as a train station, basically, if you put it all in one place. And the organising of it is a full-time... Well, it's not full-time. That's a bit unfair, because most of us have got other jobs as well. But it's a rolling, continuous process that effectively works at least 1 or 2 years ahead, if not more. The costs of running the event will probably scare a lot of people, but I'm willing to share that they're in the order of about £100,000 it costs to put that event on. By the time we've hired the building, we've arranged for 2.5 40-ton lorries to drop the tables there and then pick them up again.
Are they all hired in?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I always assumed that they were part of the convention centres.
No, nobody has those sort of numbers of tables. That literally is 2 full-size Pantechnicons come down the road from where we hire them, which is Leicester, and he delivers them by latest Friday morning, picks them up Monday. They charge us about £1,000 for delivery and diesel and all that sort of stuff alone. The cost for the prizes that we give out at the show is well in excess of £1,000. So nothing we do at the show is small scale. Now, that's not to say we're any better than any other show. The issues we have are exactly the same as every other show. We got more of them. It's bigger. We're very fortunate. 25 years ago, when we ran what was called the Internationals in the year 2000, which was supposedly going to be the biggest ever model show on the planet, which it was. And we threw money at it, and the trophies got even better for that year and so on. And we took money out. And then we had a serious discussion about whether we should even keep going because we couldn't do any better. The situation at that point is we had very little cash in the bank. But when I became president, just around that time, just after that, I sat down with the committee and said, we had a brainstorming session and said, this is a business and we should run it like a business. And we set some objectives. We said we were going to try and break 2,000 members, which we'd never done in the 40 years of the society at that point. It was said to be impossible. We'd never do it. Today we've got 5,200. And I also said we would try and make sure, without being just harsh-nosed business people for the sake of it, we should try and put money in the bank so that if the rains ever came, we'd be safe. And the rains came in the form of COVID, because at one point, when we were all in that confusion of the year, we could have lost the entire cost of running the show with no income. And the good news is we had the money in the bank to be able to do that. We could have refunded every penny that the traders had contributed in prepayments and so on.
Was you insured for that, Paul? Do you have insurance in place that would cover anything like that anyway?
We have, yes, we do have a fairly heavyweight level of cover. We have several levels of cover, as you probably know. We are a limited company, so people like myself, we are directors of the company. So we have directors insurance, so that give us some protection. We have corporate insurance for the society, which means that had that event gone pear-shaped, fortunately, we never had to test it, so we don't know. And I don't think anybody did. That was the thing. With COVID, nobody knew what was going to happen. I mean, had every event in the world tried to claim on insurance, the insurance industry would have gone bust, wouldn't it? This all sounds incredibly tedious, and I imagine you'll cut a lot of this out because this is a boring back office running a business stuff. And that's what some of us on the board, that is what the board does to some of the work. We have to do it. But we are a medium-sized business in the eyes of the British business world. We turn over somewhat north of £250,000 a year, heading towards 300. And that's we have no employees. We have no one gets any payment. There are no dividends.
Sounds like a fantastic business, that one there, Paul.
I tell you, the minute anybody did try and take money out of it, there wouldn't be. That would be the problem. It lives on the fact that people donate to make it work. Our time, abilities, and just, getting involved. The people who put those, I think it's 1,400 tables up on the Friday morning at the show are all volunteers who turn up and do it for the love of it. People who run the contest, the people who marshal people in and out the show, take tickets, whatever. Everybody volunteers and nobody's getting any financial benefit from it.
And you tend to see the same faces year in, year out, don't you, all doing all these kinds?
Exactly right. I see it as being like any other society or organisation. The more you enjoy it, the more you'll put into it. Or is that the other way around? That the more you put into it, the more you get back from it. I genuinely feel the best thing you ever do in these situations, put your head over the parapet, get involved. And that's almost certainly what all you guys are doing here. We're the sort of people who are willing to have a go at something. This could do with doing. Let's try this. Let's do it. And we do it. Like every club, society, golf club, church hall, whatever it may be, there'll be 100 members and 10 who actually get involved and do it. But fortunately at the moment, we've got enough that do. And I'm sure that's true of every other group around the place. But I genuinely feel the more you do something, the more you get involved, the more you'll get out of it. You'll benefit, you'll grow, you'll learn more things, you'll meet more people. We keep coming back to it, it's people.
We can absolutely concur with that one, Paul, because for our little show, which we have in January, the Bowl.
Not that little.
We've grown a little bit since having it at St. Joseph's School, but it's now one where we have to get really, really organised. Similar vein to yourselves. Unfortunately for us, we're sort of constrained by the football fixtures or soccer for the rest of the world. As soon as they're announced, then we can set the priorities in terms of getting the show, the publicity, and all that sort of stuff arranged. Boulders, he's our show manager, and he stressed out all the way to the end.
It was stressful for the first couple of years, but I've got a plan in action, so hopefully this time round.
I think you've eased into it quite well, Mike.
Fingers crossed we'll run smoothly.
I think you do a great job, Mike, and keep doing it, because it's exactly what I said. Your problems will be exactly the same as ours.
They will be.
It's a scale thing. You run exactly the same. It's just we need more volunteers, we need more tables, and all that. But everything works the same way. I always take my hat off to anybody who organises a show, whether they've got 6 tables and 2 traders and the wives doing cups of tea, up to Scale Model World or the US Nationals or something. They're horrendously big tasks to run, and everybody who gets involved deserves the thanks of the hobby. Because if they didn't do it, we wouldn't have them.
So, Paul, you've obviously been talking about SMW and what's planned to be taking part in the event. Have we got any traders that have been announced yet, or anything you can reveal on the pod of upcoming traders?
Certainly got some. You'd be surprised how many traders actually commit at the show itself for the next year. We do invite them to do that because it helps us getting their commitment in early and not having to chase them. But for some of them, particularly overseas guys, they can't make that necessarily commitment on the day because they've got to work out travel and so forth. But quite a recent one that's come up, one of the big names we've not had present for a couple of years has been Zukimura, our friends from Japan.
Oh, good phantoms.
Who will be coming over.
Really?
Indeed. Not sure what, but there's almost certain to be some kind of new kit there that they'll be launching on an order basis or something. So it'll be great to have them back because they've not been able to make it for a couple of years. Not because of any reasons or falling out with us, just when you're coming halfway across the world, it's difficult to plan things. People have weddings and stuff like that and birthdays that get in the way. We are also aware that Edward and Special Hobby, who are our big friends from the Czech Republic, will be attending, bringing their huge towering edifice of kits and bits. So they'll be coming over again. We've got other serious interest from around Europe. Basically, the fear factor we had when COVID hit us, that, and indeed Brexit as well, that it was going to be very difficult to trade cross-border. It is proving to be a lot less of a problem than people were worried it was. So we do have people coming from there. A couple of guys, we think, tentative, subject to flights and confidence and that sort of thing, but a couple of guys from the States are looking to attend. So that's always helpful. And generally, the trade bookings are strong at the moment. We're not full in terms of absolute commitments today. So any trader, though, who is hearing this, who by any chance wants to get in, better get booked soon. Our own clubs and SIGs are back with huge volumes already. In theory, they all had to commit by the end of May. Guess what? We haven't heard from everybody yet. But we have some pretty big themed displays coming along. Not going to break the ice on those today because I think it may be a little bit early. But there are some themes coming. Those who've been to the show before would have seen we tend to have a feature display each year. For those who've been and seen the odd time when we've had a tank or a helicopter in the building, not happening. Logistically, these things are impractical, frankly, so we won't be doing any of that stuff. Those days we've moved away from. We're filling pretty much every space we have, we can fill. So we don't need sort of those kind of things to help pack the show out a bit. But we expect, based on statistics, that this could be a big competition year as well, because a lot of the competition modelers come every other year. So, and we know last year quite a few didn't. Country in particular didn't come at all. In any numbers, and that was Poland. So we know they're coming back. So we expect them to come in considerable numbers for the contest. So genuinely, plans are well ahead. May seem quite a long way to go yet, 6 months nearly, but it's well on the way, and we do expect this to be a really good scale model world. So please, if you're a member, put it in, make sure it's in your diary. And if you're not a member, think about becoming one. And if you genuinely just want to come and see it, there will be ticketing available from about 1st of August. So you'll be able to buy tickets online.
Okay, so 2 questions stem from that. First of all, how does a person actually become a member?
Go to our website,
which is
IPMSuk.org.
Okay, and the other part is if there's a trader who hasn't been to SMW before and hasn't actually ordering a table, etc., how does he go around actually booking a table?
Again, go to our website, IPMSuk.org, and follow the links in there, and you will find that there is a Scale Model World page in there on which the exhibition details are there, the booking forms and so on are visible. You can see what you might be paying and those kind of things. I'll navigate from that and contact our Scale Model World manager, who is Rich Middleton, who's been doing it now for 3 years, so he's building his expertise on the show. And he will be more than happy to answer any questions anybody's got. So I'll contact any. My email address is on there as well. If you really feel you can't find anybody else, you can always mail myself and I'll try and help.
Okay, Mark.
There's been a noticeable resurgence of interest in scale modelling in recent years, post-pandemic that is. Where do you think is driving that continuation post-COVID? And how is IPMS adapting to new generation of modelers?
Yeah, what it is, I think the hobby it jumped back a little bit into the mainstream during COVID. It did lead to quite a number of people being stuck at home, wondering what to do, and they got back to something that they'd done in the past. I mentioned earlier that, our hobby is aging. I think it's, there's a constant push to, can we get new people? Can we get new kids? Can we do that? I think there's not that many kids that are going to want to come to model clubs and that sort of thing. Plus, these days, it's more difficult than it used to be 40 years ago. Kids can't just get on a bike and go 20 miles and sit in somebody's house.
Kids have got more choice as well, haven't they?
Much more choice to go.
In our day, in the 70s, it was scale electric train set or modelling.
Exactly.
For young lads. Or Action Man, yeah.
And I'd be happy to include pretty much all 3 of them in the same hobby, really.
Yeah.
So so the hobby has changed. So I think the big growth of the hobby has been in what we call retreads, for want of a better term, which is people who've sampled it when they were kids in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and come back to it. The other bit we do seem to pick people up from is people who have joined the modelling hobby through what is known as the Warhammer hobby. It isn't known as anything else. It's not wargaming. It's not anything else. It's called Warhammer. They've kind of looked over the parapet and realised there is more to the world than Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40k. And they spread out from that. And I think that's helped because a lot of the people in places like Games Workshop and those sort of companies, a lot of them are actually modelers as well, or historical modelers. So they've had interests as well. And for a while, those who have memories will remember we did used to have Games Workshop, used to attend Scale Model World, because there were people there who actively wanted to see real modelling, some people would call it, as opposed to their fantasy and sci-fi world. And then the company structure changed and policies changed, and they no longer go to anything that they're not controlling. But there is an opening there. And I think the key is we need to adapt to it. We need to welcome these people when they come along. It's always difficult. One sees it on the social medias and things where somebody will have built one of these £5 starter kits that come out every Christmas through certain supermarkets.
Side of it, it's not a lot of these kits aren't spends or pocket money prices anymore.
Some aren't, but there is still way into it that's not that expensive. I mean, the starter range kits are pretty low cost and so on. I think as a hobby, we need to think that the fact we used to be able to buy an Airfix Series 1 kit for the 2 shillings in the 70s, and now it's £6. When I was a kid, I got 2 shillings as my pocket money, and I wouldn't mind betting that a modern teenager probably gets a £5 or a tenner as pocket money. The world has moved, but I still think, if you do spend £30 on what I would call a pretty median kit these days, you're going to get quite a few evenings out of that. In my case, probably years out of it, certainly before it gets finished. In terms of pounds per hour, if you like, it's still pretty low cost. It can be done in your own room, at your own time, at your own speed, and to your own standards. And I think the biggie for me is whenever I see a model, whether it's online or at a show or in a club meeting, every model was built to the best of that guy's ability at that time. So let's not shoot them down. It's all about having a little bit of, I don't know what the right word is, but a little bit of human feeling, and just support each other, and you'll help them get better. If you say, yeah, what a great term. I'm having that.
Sold to that man.
I'm having that. So yeah, it's about encouraging people and making sure there's a home for them and that they feel that they can contribute. No branch, club or SIG that I'm involved in would ever put on a display and grade models and say that isn't going on because it's not good enough. They might do that and say it's not the theme we need this, we're doing a theme, it's the wrong subject, but never that it's not good enough. It's as good as it chooses to be at the time. And my own models are not great. I have never won a competition in my life except once when I entered a competition and nobody else did.
I'd have kept that quiet.
You didn't come second, did you, Paul?
By default, I won that class at a show. And my modelling is at the best average. But I still put models on tables for SIGs, for branches, in other displays.
And you get the enjoyment out of the build.
Absolutely right. It's me who's built it. And I'm if I'm satisfied with it, that's the end of the story. Nobody should be judging. If you go into a competition world, different game, but that's a different mindset. But now I think that's really important that people can feel welcome, whatever they're doing.
Without fear or favour.
Exactly. And I think also, you're asking about how we're trying to adapt to the world. In the 90s, we had no internet, we had no emails, we had no electronic contacts. We are attempting to move with the world. We're not the fastest movers in these worlds. We don't, as a group, the committee are very busy running what we do now. So we do find it sometimes a bit hard to adapt and move forward in some of these areas. But something we've done in the last 12 months, 6 months even probably, is we now have a YouTube channel, which our new publicity officer, Mark, joined the committee shade over a year ago now. He said, I want to try that. And we said, great, get on with it. We support that. I'm here tonight talking to you guys for exactly the same reason. This is something new.
Can I ask what kind of content is on the YouTube channel?
At the moment, it's pretty new. I think he's only done a handful of videos. But what he's trying to do is he's trying to focus a bit on people rather than models. It's not a how-to channel. We're not going to get into that game. There's hundreds of those out there. we're not going to in that market. So he's trying to do things about people. So he's done a little bit about his own branch, obviously. Nice, easy target. He's picked on some modelers from that branch and done a sort of, it is a bit about modelling, but why have you done that model? Those kinds of things. And if there's a story behind it, if there's any reason to it. He's trying to do some show visits, but again, not just looking around and filming what won the contest and all that kind of thing, but what is interesting, what's happening, what's different, what's special at this show, and talking to the people who are responsible for it. So, he's trying to be a little bit different than we are than we see on other sites. Early days, but we're trying it. We used to have a forum. I think it still exists if you've still got the link, but I don't think anything gets posted on it these days. They were replaced by Facebook or whatever. We are on Facebook. We work on there. We're quite active there. So we're trying again to reach into these areas where people are these days. And lastly, just point of growth and touching base with people. We're trying to get where we can out into areas that aren't preaching to the converted. Because you can go to a model show in the UK every weekend, and I would probably tell you I'd see across 50 weeks, I'd probably see the same people, at least 10 or 12 of them each time, different ones, but different shows, but the same people. So something we found to be quite interesting, which we've developed in the last 12 months through fortuity, I guess, it just came up accidentally, is there's a little group of us have been asked to put on displays at flying displays at Duxford. So when they have a flying display on, or a flying day, one of their small flying displays, they basically ask a handful of us, about 4 or 5 of us, it's the VE Day show or the D-Day show. Can you put a display on? Between us, we can find models that cover the theme, vehicles, planes, tanks, whatever. They give us a couple of tables in a hangar somewhere. Seem to have stabilised in the American Air Museum there now. We're seen and we're there for the public to walk past. Yes, members turn up and chat to us, but a heck of a lot of the people we speak to are not members of any modelling society, club or group. Frankly, several of them have gone away and sounded like really good prospects that they are going to rock up in a model branch somewhere around the country. It's that thing of trying to get into areas which aren't natural ground for modelers. Because there's a lot of people out there who perhaps are, as somebody mentioned earlier, that little bit of courage to go across the boundary and contact a club or go along and meet with people. We're not great at that in the UK. I know we're talking to the whole world here, but certainly in the UK, people are pretty reticent about that. Make it as easy as you can for them. If someone's interested, find out why they're interested and make sure you grow that interest. It won't be for everybody, inevitably. We've got 200 branches in the UK. They're all different. But we've got to make them welcoming so that people feel happy to come through the door. Because once we've got, they come aboard, they show an interest, we've got to repay that interest by giving back to them and trying to help encourage them to take the next step.
Okay, Tim.
What I want to ask you is that when I buy my membership, when I renew my membership, I should say, I get into Telford, they're very reasonable price. And I've come across people who say, I only use it here. Beyond shows and competitions, what are some of the lesser known initiatives or benefits that IPMS UK offers to its members?
We've touched on the biggest single one on pretty much every conversation we've had on this pod. It's the feeling that you're part of something. However that may be, you feel you're part of something. So that's undoubtedly there. But of course, you only get that once you've joined and you've crossed the boundary and you're part of it. Financially, if you're of that ilk, then the biggest single financial benefit you get from your membership is, you're absolutely right there, and it's the free access to Scale Model World, which is that really good price you mentioned. 0, free, no charge, because it's part of your subscription. You're
Don't forget, some shops offer you 10% off if you're an IPMS member.
I was going to mention that too. And our local shop we talked about.
Yeah, you can.
Well, you're going to make sure you get it on Sunday there, Brownie, because
oh, yes.
Halifax Modelers World is very good. I mean, Dave will basically do, I'm not going to say it's 10% off everything, but it's pretty much that.
other shops are available?
Some traders at shows do it, some do it on the internet. There are various financial incentives like that. And in fact, if you didn't even go to a show, just by buying your kits and your books and so forth from the people who offer these kind of rates, you would get a few pounds back and you would easily cover your membership. Another one, quite an invisible one, we need to actually mention again because it's our friends at Key Publishing, who are one of our media partners. IPMS members get a discount off subscriptions to their magazines. So if you were to subscribe to 3 of their magazines, you just got 15 quid back probably. There's stuff there. We publish it every month in the magazine, so there is certainly financial things there for you. We've talked quite a lot about branches, so I'll leave them as said for now. We have touched on special interest groups. Yeah, everybody who's a member can join and contribute to special interest groups, which are specialist-themed branches. I mentioned the Harrier one particularly, not because I'm a member of it, although I am, but it's well known as a reference source. And you don't have to be a member to ask. And if you want help on how to build a certain type of kit, the SIG has got reference materials coming out of its ears on how to do that, including, literally stage by stage builds and how to correct it to the nth degree. Possibly too much for most people, but it's very accurate. It's very complete. It's there for free. If you take home a kit from a bring and buy or something, it ain't got any instructions. I know you can generally find them online nowadays, but we have a member who stores these away, filed away. You can contact him, email him and say, I need the instructions for a blah, blah, blah. And he'll go, yeah, got that. Do you want me to email it? Got address? And we'll send it out.
That's excellent. With traders and shops and whatever, is it worth just chancing your arm and flashing the card and saying, could I have?
They can only say no.
Exactly. You don't ask, you don't get.
You can only say no. I got a discount at a show on Sunday off a trader who I genuinely did not know did IPMS discount. And he...
Go on then, spill the beans.
Matador Models.
Oh, Matador.
Matador Models, producers of very fine 176 military vehicles, mainly. And I guess that I wouldn't have even asked, frankly, but he gave it me because he knows who I am. Now, that's not trying to say I'm big me. He would have given it, he said, to anybody who's an IPMS member. And it was, I think it was £4 or something like that, which is worth having, particularly nice little resin vehicle that I like because I like a certain type of truck made in Sandbach, where I lived originally. So it's, there's that kind of thing. So just to move to something else, we touched on instruction sheet. We also have quite a large bank of decals, hence it's called the Decal Bank, where we have filed away or heaped away in some cases, lots and lots of decals that members have donated to us over the years. Again, if you end up with that kit that's got waterlogged decals that's come out of somebody's loft or something, you need a set of decals, we can probably help for most people. And it's going to cost you a stamp. Send me a letter sent with a stamp in it and I'll send you back what I've got if I can find something. We try to help people make their kits as best we can, and these are physical things we can do to help.
That's great peace of mind about the instructions and the decals, because not everybody has the wherewithal to send off to Hammond's, other places are available. There's something rather disheartening about going through kit swapping and getting it home and opening it and the decals and the instructions are missing. It's happened to me.
It happens more than you think. More particularly, it comes around when, I don't know whether you guys saw them at Model World this year, but the Aerobatic SIG did the representation of the 22 Hunter Loop, as it was the anniversary of the Hunter. Those who were doing it, I can build kits very well. I'm not really good at finishing them at the moment, but I built several and other guys finished them. But we needed a heck of a lot of effectively Treble 1 Squadron roundels and fin flashes and so forth in 72. The Decal Bank sorted most of that out without a problem. So it's doing things for different types, different colour, different schemes and so on. Got to say though, it's pretty much an aircraft thing, I'm afraid. Don't get many tanks sent in. Don't get many requests from. I think it's self-fulfilling, really. But again, it's good service for members that we try to help people with. There are various things like this. We have a task service where if you want to know something specific about, you're trying to research, I don't know, an aeroplane. We're going to do an aeroplane. It's easy to talk about. Somebody flew, a member of your family flew or something, and you want to make a model of it. Well, you can contact our task service, technical advisory service, and if they can, the chap who runs it, Alfie Bass, will try and get you some details and information. He'll do some research for you, because not everybody knows how or where. We may all know you just go online or you'd go to the RAF records office or whatever. Well, most people don't know that, frankly. And so, Alfie will help with some of those sort of things. So, these are all like invisible things. And each branch almost offers all these services as well. Because it's a heck of a lot of swapping going on at the average branch meeting. Have you got that? Did you bring that book? Or, I may have quite a few books stacked on the wall behind me here, but there's quite a few in other people's houses as well, because they borrow them, some of which never come back.
Yeah.
And
make a note and they're fine.
And the last thing that you get from IPMS, of course, is we do a bi-monthly magazine. Every 2 months, a 44, 48-page magazine will drop on your doormat. It will carry some pretty ordinary stuff about the society, what we're doing, how Model World's coming on, rules on how to get in, all those kind of things. But it will also have some articles and some reviews and things like that in it. And the great thing is, it's not beholden to anyone. We don't take paid advertising as such. We do the odd adverts and contras and things, but other than that, so we're not in the hands of anyone. If we have a review of a kit, it is the members' views that will be published.
And the production value of the magazine, I must say, is excellent.
Thank you. I'll make sure the editor hears this pod.
He better.
It's a very high quality product now. Again, go back to 1964, and it was a Ronioed black and white, effectively not even photocopied, 6-page newsletter. Now it's a glossy, high quality paper magazine. A lot of people say, we're done with it. It doesn't have it in it for me, or can we have it online? All of which are things we look at. Obviously, what's in it depends on what people give us to put in it.
I like the fact that it's quite diverse, to be honest with you.
It is. I think it is the most diverse modelling mag in the UK. Nobody else will publish planes, cars, figures, show reports. It's features on branches and SIGs. We'll put in it what people give us. If people take the time to put it in, it'll get considered and it'll go in as soon as we can get it in, as long as it's suitable. Absolutely, yeah. Please, more. Give him, instead of him chasing, let the editor have to choose.
Give him some work.
Yeah. No, it's like any magazine. It hangs and files on what people submit. And at any one time, there is not a lot of stuff in the cupboard, generally. There is some, but not a lot. It is whatever people do. We even pay a small amount for people who contribute, just to cover the cost of the slides and the photography. That's how old it is that we introduced the price of the paper. Again, that has given a lot of modelers who now write for what I call newsstand magazines, broke their teeth writing for IPMS mag. We act as a bit of an academy.
Okay, Paul. Well, thank you very much for your time. Just going through a couple of the points that you raised earlier, you were talking about innovation and changes and the way that the society is actually moving forward. I believe there's a little bit of news that you've got to partake as well.
Is indeed, yeah. I thought I'd trail what was coming to what we're going to say to the end. And it's not news to any of you guys on the pod, but we've been chatting to you guys since you first came up with this idea. And what we're going to do from both sides is to use this as the official podcast of IPMS. And this is not us attempting to take it over by any chance, because it's you guys' project. It's you guys' love child, really, in that respect. So we want you to grow it how you see fit. What we welcome and what we appreciate is the welcome you've given to us and said, can we work with you to help to put a bit of what we're doing on our side into it? So how that will develop over time, only time will tell. But I know Mark, our publicity officer, is keen to get on board with this. He's the guy who's already set up the YouTube channel. As he says, he's not going to be doing a podcast as well, just too many different things. But we'll see him probably popping up on this soon. Certainly, I was chatting at the weekend to Paul, and we're very happy to come along in October and do some updates on Model World and how that's going to work this year. As I say, not trying to take it over or use it just for advertising purposes or anything like that, but just to give people a flavour of what we're doing and how we're doing it, so that can grow on that. So we do see it as being a partnership. We don't see it as either side dominating the other. So we're thankful to be a guest today, because we think you're another piece that will help us to hit that digital readership that the society currently isn't really attacking, isn't really getting to. So, as I say, again, can only say regularly here, we really appreciate the offer, and we want to see how this can evolve between the two sides and see what we can do together.
Additionally, something else that Paul and I have discussed is us having a table at SMW so we can actually have a focal point so people can actually come along, talk to us, because obviously use it as a base of operations, but also we shall be roving around in our orange gear compared to Mr. Regan's yellow gear with microphone in hand and getting people's reactions to the event, not just traders, but also those of you listening to the pod to see what you think of the show.
Well, one gear, you'll have to get a split T-shirt, one blue and one orange.
I'll just wear both at the same time, depending who I talk to.
It's not an awakening.
Everyone has their uniform nowadays at model shows, don't they, Josh? It's fantastic. So no, that will be most welcome, and I say that there'll be no issue with that. We'll find you that table somewhere as a base. We might even give you a plug so you can plug into the power.
Oh, that'd be great. Paul, what's on your bench?
I don't know if I dare announce this, because it might be a scoop in a way. Because I mentioned the Duxford shows that we attend. I bought myself a T-shirt off one of the US fighter squadrons that was attending the last show there. And the next event there in July, or next but one event in July, is their American Flying Day.
Okay. So
I'm rapidly trying to get a couple of F-15s together.
Wow.
To represent their aeroplanes, which hopefully they'll like if they're there.
Is that 172?
72. I am a Braille scale modeler.
Yeah. Academy?
Mainly. Yeah, Academy.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. Ice kit and one colour, so easy to paint, and but it will have D-Day.
I was going to say, is it the one with the D-Day stripes on it? Yeah.
Yeah, doing them both because both squadrons are represented.
Fantastic.
So that's my target. So yes, but I've only got 6 weeks. For me, that's
a tight deadline.
That's impossible for me.
Yeah, it's for me normally, but we'll see. No, thank you for that question. Didn't expect that one.
Anyway, Paul, thank you very much for your time. Yeah. Much appreciated. Obviously, you've discussed you're not going to be a stranger and you'll be popping in, etc., etc.
No.
We already have an episode in October already penciled in as being the SMW update. But obviously, as we approach the show and are building up to it, there will be other bits of news, I'm sure, that you'll be wanting to actually glean out to the members, etc., and the audience. And as I said, dedicated show in October. And we look forward to seeing both yourself and the audience in person at SMW. Paul, thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Paul.
Appreciate the invite. Thanks very much.
News hot off the press. Qatari models are introducing an all-new limited edition numbered series, the Photo Reconnaissance Spitfire Collection. Kicking off the series is a stunning tribute to the very first of its kind, the Spitfire Mark I PR Type A. Born in late 1939 from Sidney Cotton's visionary program, by stripping away guns and radios and adding custom downward-facing wing cameras and blistered canopies for improved visibility. 2 mid-production Mark Is were transformed into elite eyes in the sky. These aircraft, N3069 and 3071 of No. 2 Camouflage Unit, flew deep into enemy territory, completely unarmed, at immense personal risk to the crew. And yet, their critical work helped shape Allied intelligence across the war. The kit will contain all-new canopy hood with distinctive teardrop blisters, plugged gun ports and camera lenses, high-quality cartograph decals for both aircraft, limited edition of 2,000 hand-numbered kits. And here's the kicker. Kits number 1 and 2,000 re-auctioned for the Big Buddy charity of New Zealand. This edition will never be re-released. Once they're gone, they're gone. Only available exclusively from www.qatari-models.com. And for those who pre-order before release, you'll get a beautiful Darrell Leg box art print suitable for framing and drooling over, plus a free Qatari 3D printed Spitfire exhaust. Only while stocks last. And they're going to fly faster than a PR Spit at 30,000 feet. Shipping is expected in Q4 of 2025 with a 100% refundable pre-order deposit at any time before dispatch. And that's not all. Qatari plan to release 1 new PR Spit kit every year as part of its historic tribute series. that's your lot for this episode of Beyond the Box Art. Thank you for sticking with us all the way to the end, and whether you're at the bench, in the booth, or just sneakily listening at work instead of, actually working, we won't tell if you don't. Huge thanks go again to our guest Paul Regan this episode, and speaking of guests, next time we're pulling up a chair for something a little different. Luke Flynn from the Mac Models YouTube channel will be joining us for an in-depth chat, where we'll be digging into the history of the channel, difficulties in modelling be under the spotlight, and all the behind-the-scenes juicy bits. So, from the team, Wongy.
Thanks everyone for listening, and remember, 60 parts or less.
Mark.
Bye, y'all. See ya.
Boulders.
See you next time, folks.
Tim.
Thanks for listening, folks. We'll speak to you again in 14 days or fewer.
And for the... He had to, didn't he? Yeah. He had to get it in there. And from myself, till the next time, this has been Beyond the Box Art, where sprue dreams really do come true. Bye-bye.
This may take a few takes. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Is it Raketen Jagdpanzer?
Raketen Jagdpanzer.
Raketen Jagdpanzer Jaguar 2. Right, I'll start that again.
Yeah, like that.
3, 2, 1. Impenetrable frontal armour. Unless I start that again.
Easy for you to say.
There's a few words I can never get right. Right, I'm going from the 3, 2, 1.